A detailed dossier on each individual. The Main Intelligence Directorate has published updated information on 13 Russian war criminals. Who are we talking about? I'll tell you more in the upcoming segment. I'm Solomia Witkowska, TSN. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, watch the broadcast, and be sure to comment on what you found most interesting. Here are a few of today's topics. Father and children in the same trench.
I'm here, my father is here, so I guess everything worked out. The main thing is that we're together and we're doing fine. We go together, as they say, through both good times and hard ones.
How entire families serve side by side in the Ukrainian army. Around 5 in the evening, the Russians attacked Kharkiv and Dnipro. In the Kyiv district of Kharkiv, an enemy Molnia drone hit the road and then Shaheds flew towards the city. Within 10 minutes, there were 5 explosions. And in Dnipro, Russian terrorists struck with attack drones. Videos of the destruction are already spreading online. The head of the regional military administration reported that there is 1 dead and at least 20 wounded. But the number of victims may increase. Buildings and cars caught fire in the city center. Several streets are blocked and emergency services are at work. The Shahed struck in the middle of the workday when the streets were full of people and hit a densely populated residential neighborhood. Many were injured by shrapnel, and numerous offices, universities, educational institutions, and shops were damaged. After the death of an entire family in the Krasnopil community of Sumy region, a 2-day mourning period has been declared. The Russians struck the village of Chernechchyna at around 3 in the morning. Combat drones hit a 2-story apartment building and a private house where a couple lived with their 2 small children. A fire broke out and no one was able to escape. Rescuers later recovered the bodies of 4 victims, and we already know their names. They are the father, 35-year-old Alexander Lisnichenko, his 26-year-old wife Aliona, and their 2 children, Denis and Yehor. The village council shared photos of the boys. They were 6 and 4 years old. It is known that the family had recently moved to Chernechchyna after their house was destroyed during shelling. In the Chernihiv region, after an enemy attack, power outages and train delays, Russian drones struck critical and transport infrastructure facilities, as well as an industrial enterprise in the Nizhin district. In Kostiantynivka, Russian FPV drones struck civilians, killing 2 on the spot, while 2 more with injuries were taken to the hospital by ambulance. In Drushkivka, the occupiers attacked with 10 drones. A person was also killed there, and the city suffered extensive destruction. And in Lyman, the enemy attacked an ambulance with a drone as well. The number of injured in Bilozerka, Kherson region has risen to 3. The Russians shelled the village with artillery. In Kherson, they hit a church right during the liturgy. They also damaged 20 apartment and private houses, an administrative building, and a museum. Another victim of the Russian shelling, a 74-year-old woman from Kyiv, died in intensive care. She was among those injured as a result of the Russian attack on the night of September 7th. At that time, the occupiers launched 810 drones and 13 missiles at Ukraine, hitting the government building and 2 apartment blocks in Sviatoshin. Last week, a woman who had been hospitalized pregnant after that strike died in the hospital. Her son was born the same day and is still in the hospital. The total number of victims from the attack is 5 people, including an infant boy just a few months old. More than 70 families in Zaporizhzhia will receive payments from the city. This refers to monthly assistance for those affected by the Russian shelling on September 28. At that time, the Russians struck residential neighborhoods of the city with missiles and drones. In the Shevchenkivsky district, a missile hit an apartment building. Several floors were completely burned out. And in Borodinsky, the occupiers devastated an entire street with multiple rocket launch systems. From the city budget, victims will receive 10,000 hryvnias per month for housing rent. This will continue until people can return home or receive new housing. To track down every criminal, the Main Intelligence Directorate has published updated information on 13 Russian war criminals. All of them are from the Russian Air Force Command. These are the very people who plan and give orders to bomb Ukrainian cities. Now, hospitals, maternity wards, schools, residential buildings. A detailed dossier on each of them, including the names of family members and places of residence, can be found on the JUAR website. Most of them, before the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, bombed cities in Chechnya and Syria. There is also one criminal on the list who is originally from Odessa. Serhiy Kobylesh gave the order to strike the Okhmatyt Children's Hospital in July 2024. and it was after this strike that he was even promoted by Putin to commander of the Russian Air Force. Meanwhile, the International Criminal Court has issued a warrant for his arrest. Russian troops continue their assaults in the Donbas, but are suffering critical losses. The Institute for the Study of War reports enemy advances in the Siversk direction. At the same time, Ukrainian defenders are achieving success in the Dobropillia area, where some Russian units are encircled. By the way, the enemy there is experiencing an especially acute shortage of fuel and lubricants due to precise Ukrainian strikes on Russian oil refineries. In the Novopavlivka direction, the armed forces of Ukraine are beginning to push back Russian troops. Ukrainian drones are blocking the occupiers' movement along logistical routes, so they have to move on foot within a 20-kilometer zone from the front line to avoid being spotted by drones. In the end, only 1 out of 10 invaders manages to reach the Ukrainian positions. Despite heavy losses, Russian invaders have occupied the village of Poltavka in the Donetsk region. This was reported by deep state analysts. Additionally, the Russians are advancing near Novopavlivka in the Zaporizhzhia region and in the Serebryansk forestry and Luhansk region. The enemy is pressing near Siversk and wants to capture the city. In this area, analysts note, a large gray zone has formed. The Russians are infiltrating through our positions, but to consolidate and amass forces, they cannot. A war of generations on the Orikhiv front. In the infantry, father and son stand side by side. And such stories happen often. Both have been at war since 2022, went through the Robotyne offensive and know its cost. Both were wounded. Despite the fact that the soldier with the call sign Batya has 8 children, he does not leave the army because his youngest son is also at the front. A report from the Orikhiv front by TSN correspondent Ruslan Yarmolyuk.
That's exactly why I went, because I have a big family.
Batya has 8 children, 5 of his own and 3 adopted. There was no doubt about whether to go or not.
When the full-scale invasion began, I spent more than a month praying and asking God to give me understanding about how I should behave. I realized that Christ should be in the trenches. Otherwise, how can I tell the guys that I'm here right beside them, that I'm with them?
Ivan Volodymyr is a Protestant priest, a volunteer and a father of many children. He went to war following his son Ivan. Both of them are in the infantry.
Coming here for just one son, as they often say, now I find myself with a whole bunch of wonderful sons here. And that truly is the fundamental principle. That's precisely how it should be. A father, in every sense, should be a guiding father, a wise mentor, a trusted friend, and simply a loyal comrade sitting right next to you.
At 55 years old, this father has a complicated story. He comes from the criminal 90s. As a pastor before the war, he cared for prisoners and those who had been released.
I believe that it was God who gave me this. I believe that it was God who gave me this opportunity, gave me this chance, because I myself am from those who have been beaten down. Not from the intellectuals, the white and fluffy ones.
Now, in the Orikhiv direction, he carries out combat missions together with his son. Together with his son, he went through the crucible of the Robotyne offensive, survived, saved his comrades during evacuation, and kept his son safe.
My knees still shake from the tank because I was wounded twice by a tank. And even if you know it's somewhere over there, the sound of it firing and the shell arriving still makes me a bit jittery.
Still very young in age, but already mature in actions and behavior. Ivan has seen the blood and deaths of his comrades. He has 2 wounds, but he didn't leave the front. Wherever his father and the guys are, that's where he is too.
Who am I now? I'm here, my father is here. So I guess it all worked out in the sense that we're together and we're okay. As they say. We always go through life together, experiencing both the good times and the truly hard ones.
He doesn't regret anything. It's his choice. He thanks his father for his upbringing and the values his dad instilled in him as a child. Here at the front, Ivan is among his own, and he's on equal footing with the older comrades.
It gets to you, for example, when you're on leave, when you've changed your surroundings a bit. It starts to eat away at you a bit, not so much because you see people in civilian clothes. No one is judging, that's everyone's personal choice, but it's the lack of even basic respect towards the military. Or really towards the situation in the country as a whole. You can see people walking around with a bottle of beer. At least behave a little more modestly so it doesn't hurt those who are standing up for you.
Even though their father is nearby, they don't argue, and their dad doesn't lecture them about how to live or what to do and what not to do. There is a war, there is an enemy, and it needs to be destroyed, says 25-year-old Ivan.
First of all, to me, he's a friend. He was my friend even before the war. And now he's also my brother in arms. And of course, he's my commander too. So there aren't any issues there. We have, as they say, freedom of action, but everything is agreed upon. It's not like with a father, where I say so and it will be as I want.
The enemy constantly assaults our fortifications both on foot and with vehicles. A father's fear for his son and a son's fear for his father is always present. Both the father, the son, and the guys in the unit pray before every combat mission. And Ivan says it works. The main thing is to believe.
Of course, I pray even when I'm not afraid. We truly try. And you say to yourself, "Oh Lord, please place your divine protection, your strong shield," and then you clearly see the positive result.
The war of generations has become a reality. Now both fathers and children are fighting. They are fighting the same eternal enemy of Ukraine, the Moscow Kremlin. Ruslan Yarmolyuk, Mikhailo Povtyara, TSN 1+1.
The European Commission will allocate an additional 2 billion euros for Ukrainian drones. This was announced by its president, Ursula von der Leyen, at a joint press conference with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte before the start of the European Commission's board meeting. There, they are discussing EU security, and right now decisive support for Ukraine could lead to a turning point in the war, von der Leyen emphasized. Earlier, the European Commissioner for Defense, Andrius Kubilius, called for the urgent construction of a drone wall on the eastern flank of the European Union. The plan is to base it on technologies that have already proven effective in Ukraine.
Europe must respond actively and collectively to Russian drone provocations at our borders. That is why we are proposing immediate action to make drones a part of our guard on the eastern flank. We must address this together with Ukraine and NATO.
Right now, this drone project is very necessary, very timely, because ultimately we cannot spend millions of euros or dollars on missiles that will shoot down every drone costing just a few $1,000s.
Denmark is launching joint training with Ukraine on protecting the skies from drones. Throughout the week, Ukrainian military personnel will be sharing practical experience with foreigners. This weekend, unknown drones were detected over military facilities and airfields in NATO countries, with the highest number in Denmark. After that, Copenhagen announced the closure of the skies to all civilian UAVs from Monday to Friday. And as soon as tomorrow, European leaders will gather in this country to discuss violations of airspace. It is expected that President Zelensky will also join via video link. How could the appearance of unidentified drones over NATO countries change the course of the war? Share your thoughts in the comments to this broadcast on YouTube. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. In the meantime, I will continue with the TSN broadcast. A second Ukrainian has already been detained on suspicion of sabotaging the Nord Stream gas pipelines. In Poland, a man was detained whom German investigators suspect of blowing up the pipelines 3 years ago. This was reported by the Polish radio station RMF-FM. According to the German prosecutor's office, a man named Volodymyr worked as a diving instructor and may have participated in planting explosives in the fall of 2022. He has already been taken to the prosecutor's office in Warsaw. A lawyer confirmed to Reuters that the Ukrainian is in custody. But he does not admit guilt. There is no evidence for extradition. In August, another Ukrainian was already detained in Italy under a European warrant. This is Serhiy Kuznetsov. He is 49 years old, and the German prosecutor's office considers him the coordinator of the sabotage. The man was arrested in the province of Rimini, where he had come on vacation with his family. And after the court's decision, he will be deported to Germany. Investigators suspect that Kuznetsov may also have been involved in attacks on vessels of the Russian Shadow Fleet, which Russia uses to illegally transport its oil. The suspect himself denies any involvement in the explosions and claims that at the time of the sabotage he was in Ukraine.